In this video, we're breaking down a play from a real high school baseball game that creates a great rules discussion for umpires. We have a runner on first base, the batter hits a home run, and the runner from first touches second, touches third, but then he never touches the plate. Instead, he stops short of home and joins his teammates getting ready to celebrate as the batter runner comes around. The batter runner continues around the bases and does touch home plate. In the actual game, no outs were called. There was also no appeal made by the defense, but the play did lead to an interesting discussion afterwards. Do we have abandonment by the runner from first? Do we have passing by the batter runner? Can we have both? Do we need an appeal? And how do all of these rules work together on the field? That's what we're going to cover in this video. We'll start by reviewing the rules, and then we'll apply them to this actual play. After that, we'll go through a few case plays to help solidify your understanding. Hey everyone, Patrick Farber here with GHSA Baseball, Umpire Development, and Umpire Classroom, where we help umpires develop their knowledge and skills. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and you can find more educational content at umpireclassroom.com. And this lesson is supported by the National Association of Sports Officials, which you can join through the link in the description. Let's get started. To start, we'll break down the runner's passing rule, NFHS 8-4-2M. Any runner is out when the runner passes an unobstructed preceding runner before such runner is out. This is not a very complicated rule, but there are a couple of things to note. If we have a passing situation, the runner who is out is the one who passes. It is not the runner who gets passed. It is the runner who passes a preceding runner. And note that this is not an appeal play. If the umpire sees the passing, the umpire calls the out at the moment it happens, and the ball remains live. That said, there is one exception where we would not get an out for passing, if the runner who was passed was obstructed. For example, let's say R1 is advancing on a double. As R1 starts heading to second, F3 obstructs him. He falls to the ground and he cannot continue running. If the batter runner continues towards second and passes R1, we're not going to call the batter runner out for passing an obstructed runner. Instead, when the play ends, we will enforce the obstruction and place the runners where we believe they would have ended up had the obstruction not occurred. In this example, we are probably putting R1 at third base and leaving the batter runner at second. The idea is that we do not want to incentivize the defense to obstruct, block, or knock down runners to prevent the offensive team from advancing on the bases. Now, where you will most commonly see passing in actual games is usually on home runs or deep fly balls. Not exactly like what we see in our video, but a related version. With less than 2 outs and a runner on first base, the batter hits a deep fly ball. R1, thinking the ball may be caught, so he goes back to first base to tag up. But the batter runner is watching the ball and continues running the bases. If the batter runner passes R1 before R1 is out, then at that instant that occurs, the batter runner is out for passing. Again, no appeal is needed. The umpire sees it, calls it immediately, and the ball remains live. Now let's talk about abandonment. And when we talk about abandonment, we really need to separate two different rules. First, we have abandonment by the batter runner on an uncaught third strike. That is covered in NFHS 8-4-1I, which says, the batter runner is out when on a drop third strike, the batter runner gives up by entering the bench or dugout area, or with 2 outs, and does not attempt to reach first base before all infielders leave the diamond at the end of the half inning. So for a batter runner on an uncaught third strike at the high school level, he is not simply out because he starts walking back to his dugout or goes outside the dirt circle around home. For abandonment purposes, he is out when he gives up by entering the bench or dugout area. The only other way is that if his strikeout would be the 3rd out of the inning, he can be called out if he does not attempt to reach first base before all infielders leave the diamond at the end of the half inning. Side note, that is different from the rule at other levels. At other levels, on an uncaught third strike, once the batter runner starts heading towards the dugout and he exits the dirt circle around home, at that point, he can and should be called out for abandoning his effort to reach first. But again, that is not the rule at the high school level. Now, when we apply that to our play, we do not have an issue with abandonment by the batter runner before reaching first base. This is not an uncaught third strike, and the batter hits a home run and legally reaches first base. So we need to look at the other abandonment rule, which is NFHS 8-4-2P. That rule says, any runner is out when the runner, after at least touching first base, leaves the baseline, obviously abandoning the runner's effort to touch the next base. And then the note added onto it says, any runner, after reaching first base, who leaves the baseline heading for the dugout or a defensive position, believing there is no further play, shall be declared out if the umpire judges the act of the runner to be considered abandoning an effort to run the bases. So let's break that down. First, the rule applies to any runner after that runner has touched first base. So once our batter runner touches first base, this rule can apply to him. And obviously, it can apply to R1 as well because R1 had already reached first before the play started. The important phrase is this: leaving the baseline, obviously abandoning the runner's effort to touch the next base. That is the key to this rule, and the word we need to focus on is abandoning. Now, when we look at the note underneath the rule, most of it is really just a reshuffling of the same language, but it does add one helpful idea. It tells us why the runner might leave the baseline. The note says the runner may be heading to the dugout or to a defensive position, believing that there's no further play. That phrase matters because the other side of believing there is no further play is there must actually still be some action or responsibility remaining, but the runner does not recognize it. Maybe the runner thinks the inning is over. Maybe the runner thinks he has been put out. Maybe he thinks the ball was caught. For whatever reason, he believes he no longer has a reason or right to keep advancing. That is the type of action abandonment is designed to cover. So when we look at our play, right away we should focus on the result of the hit. We have a home run. The ball is dead. There is no continuing live ball play being made on the runners. The issue is not that the runner gave up because he thought there was no further play. The issue is that he failed to touch home plate. Those are different things. To understand why, we need to think about what abandonment actually means. Cornell law defines abandonment in property law as the voluntary and intentional discarding of a recognized property right. It also defines abandoned property as property left by an owner who intentionally relinquishes all rights to its control. I think that's fundamental to this rule. Abandonment requires intent to give up. So a runner missing a base or missing the plate is not automatically abandonment. That is why we have appeals in the rule book. An accidental, careless, or even boneheaded failure to touch all the bases is not the same thing as a runner intentionally giving up his right to continue advancing. Think of it this way. If you leave your phone in a bathroom, the next person who picks it up does not suddenly own it. You forgot your responsibility to keep up with your phone, but you did not decide you no longer wanted it. You made a mistake, but it is still your phone. Forgetting it does not mean you abandoned it and gave up your rights to it. Abandonment exists for the runner who voluntarily gives up his effort to continue running the bases. Now, that does not mean the runner has to be correct about why he gave up. If a runner thinks he is out, even though he is not, and leaves the base path because he believes he cannot legally keep advancing, that may still constitute abandonment. It may be based on a bad assumption, but the act of giving up is still voluntary. So the typical abandonment play is a runner who thinks the inning is over and starts heading back to the dugout, or a runner who thinks he has been put out, even though he is not, and leaves the base path because he believes he cannot legally continue advancing. That is the type of action we are looking for. In our play, that does not happen. R1 is not giving up on his right to score. He is not leaving because he thinks the inning is over. He is not leaving because he thinks he is out. He simply thinks he has already scored and has completed his requirements. That is not abandonment, that is a missed base. And a missed base requires an appeal. So after playing action ends, the defense can appeal that R1 did not touch home plate. If that appeal is made properly, R1 would be out on appeal. That distinction matters because if we called abandonment on any miss of home, then we would basically eliminate all appeals at home plate. So on this play, we do not have abandonment by R1. What we do have is passing by the batter runner. When the batter runner passes R1, the batter runner should be called out immediately for passing. That out occurs before the batter runner legally scores. Then after that, if R1 still does not touch home plate, the defense can legally appeal that R1 missed home. If that appeal is made properly, R1 is also out. So yes, it is possible for the defense to get 2 outs on this play. The batter runner is out immediately for passing, and R1 is out only if the defense properly appeals the missed plate. So that's my judgment on how I'm applying the rules to this play. Yes, you could make an argument for abandonment, but I think that argument would have to ignore the true definition of abandonment, and frankly, it punishes the defense by limiting them to 1 out instead of potentially 2. So again, on this play, I have passing by the batter runner, and then potentially an appeal on R1 for missing home plate. If that appeal is made, neither run would score. But of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's go through some case plays to help lock in this lesson. Case play number 1. R1, R3, 2 outs, 0-2 count. B2 swings and misses at the next pitch, which is not caught by F2. R1 and B2 both advance while R3 holds at third. F2, mistakenly believing the bases are loaded, picks up the ball and steps on home plate. B2 hears the defensive team say the inning is over. Thinking F2's touch of home was a force out for the third out, B2 stops running before reaching first base. He then walks toward his dugout and, while still in live ball territory, meets a bench player in foul territory who hands him his glove and hat to go on defense. At that point, the defensive team has left the infield. The offensive team then realizes there was no force play at home, and B2 goes to first base. What is the correct ruling? A, this is legal. B2 may advance to first base and R1 may advance to second. The ball remains live and all runners may advance at their own risk. B, B2 is out because he did not reach first base before all infielders left the infield. C, B2 is out for abandonment as soon as he stops running towards first base. The correct answer is B. B2 is out because with 2 outs and an uncaught third strike, the batter runner must at least be attempting to reach first base before all infielders leave the diamond at the end of the half inning. This is the specific abandonment rule for a batter runner on an uncaught third strike with 2 outs before the strike 3 called. If there had been no outs or 1 out, the batter runner would not be called out for abandonment until he actually entered the bench or dugout area. But with 2 outs, we have this additional rule. If he does not attempt to reach first base before all infielders leave the diamond, he is out. Case play number 2. R1, R3, 2 outs, 0-2 count. Same situation. B2 swings and misses at an uncaught third strike. R1 and B2 both advance while R3 holds at third. F2 mistakenly steps on home plate, thinking the bases are loaded. B2 hears the defensive team say the inning is over, stops running, and starts walking towards his dugout. This time, though, F3 stays on the infield, talking to the first base umpire while the rest of the defensive team has entered the dugout. While F3 is still on the infield, the offensive team realizes there was no force play at home, and B2 goes to first base. What is the correct ruling? A, this is legal. B2 may advance to first base and R1 may advance to second. The ball remains live and all runners may advance at their own risk. B, B2 is out because he stopped running towards first base. C, B2 is out because most of the defensive team has already left the field. The correct answer is A, this is legal. The reason is that the 2 out uncaught third strike rule says the batter runner is out if he does not attempt to reach first base before all infielders leave the diamond at the end of the half inning. In this play, F3 is still on the infield talking to U1. He has not left the diamond. So the conditions for calling B2 out have not yet been met. B2 can still attempt to advance to first base. The ball remains live and all runners may advance at their own risk. Case play number 3, no outs. B1 hits a ground ball and reaches first base safely. However, B1 thinks the throw beat him to first base, so he leaves the base path and starts walking towards the dugout. What is the correct ruling? Is this A, B1 is safe because he already reached first base before leaving the base path? B, B1 is out for abandoning his effort to remain at first base and continue running the bases? C, B1 is only out if the defense tags him before he reaches the dugout. The correct answer is B. B1 is out for abandonment. Even though B1 is wrong, he believes he is out. Because he believes he is out, he consciously gives up his effort to continue running the bases and starts heading back to the dugout. That is abandonment. The key is not whether he was correct. The key is that he voluntarily gave up his effort to continue running the bases because he thought he had no legal right to continue. Case play number 4. R2, no outs. R2 is advancing to third base on a ground ball to F5. Because of confusion on the play, F5 steps on third and then throws across to first base. R2 believes he has been forced out at third base and starts leaving the field toward his team's dugout. His coach then tells him to return to third. What is the correct ruling? Is this A, R2 may return to third because the coach corrected him before he entered the dugout? B, R2 is only out if the defense appeals before the next pitch? C, R2 is out for abandoning his effort to continue running the bases? The correct answer is C. R2 is out for abandonment. He was not forced out at third base, but he thinks he was. Because he thinks he was retired, he starts leaving the field and heading towards the dugout. That is a textbook example of abandonment. Again, the runner does not have to be correct about why he gave up. If he believes he is out and voluntarily gives up his effort to advance or return to a base, he should be declared out for abandonment. And remember, this happens after he has already touched first. So entering the dugout has nothing to do with this ruling. Case play number 5. Bases loaded, no outs. B4 hits a fly ball to center field that is trapped by F8. R2 thinks the ball was caught and starts returning to second base. R1, meanwhile, tries to advance from first to second. F8 throws the ball to F4 at second base before either R1 or R2 reaches the base. The umpire signals an out. Both runners, thinking they have been retired, begin to leave the field. What is the correct ruling? Is this A, R1 is out for the force at second? R2 is also out for abandoning his effort to advance or return to a base? B, both runners are out on force plays because both were headed to second base? Or C, only R1 is out. R2 may return to second as long as he has not exited the field because he was never tagged. The correct answer here is A. R1 is out on the force at second base. R2 is also out for abandonment when he starts leaving the field. R2 was not forced out. He was not tagged. But when he starts jogging off the field because he thinks he may be retired, he is abandoning the effort to continue advancing or returning on the bases. He is wrong about the play, but he made a conscious decision to give up because he believed he no longer had the right to advance. Case play number 6. R1, R2, 2 outs. B4 hits a single. As the runners advance, B4 passes R1 between first and second base before R2 touches the plate. What is the correct ruling? A, R1 is out immediately when he is passed by B4. R2's run does not count. B, R1 can be called out on appeal by the defense. R2's run does not count. C, B4 can be called out on appeal by the defense. R2's run does count. D, B4 is out immediately when he passes R1. R2's run does not count. The correct answer is D. B4 is out immediately when he passes R1. Passing is not an appeal play. The umpire calls it when it happens. And the runner who is out is the runner who does the passing, not the runner who gets passed. Because this is the third out and it occurs before R2 touches the plate, R2's run does not count. This is a time play, and the timing of the out matters. Case play number 7. Same situation as before. R1, R2, 2 outs. B4 hits a single. As the runners advance, R2 touches the plate first. After R2 touches home, B4 passes R1 between first and second base. What is the correct ruling? A, B4 is out immediately when he passes R1, R2's run counts. B, R1 is out immediately when he is passed by B4, R2's run does not count. C, R1 is out immediately when he is passed by B4, R2's run counts. D, B4 can be called out on appeal by the defense, R2's run does not count. E, R1 can be called out on appeal by the defense, R2's run does not count. The correct answer is A. Again, in a passing situation, B4 is the runner who is out because B4 is the runner who passed a preceding runner. R1 is not out simply because he was passed. And again, this is an immediate out, not an appeal play. But this time, R2 touched the plate before the passing occurred. So even though B4 is out for the third out, R2's run does count. The passing out is a time play, and on this version, the run scored before the out. So there you have it. That's our review of abandonment and passing, and how they apply specifically to this play. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and you can find more Umpire educational content at umpireclassroom.com and in Referee Magazine. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the field.